alternative talk radio. Get ready, America, for Deadline Live with your host, Jack Blood. Deadline Live is a daily wrap-up for those too busy in the daily grind to discern and dissect the news. While the so-called mainstream media buries the truth, Jack Blood uncovers it, exposing the lies that our trusted government officials do not want us to know. And now, please welcome Jack Blood.
Hey, we did it. And off we go. Yet another year of deprogramming. Welcome, my fellow thought criminals and enemies of the state. You are now tuned in to Deadline Live. It is January 3rd, 2011. I'm Jack Blood, your narrator, your radio gun reporting for the next 2 hours. We started this show in 2001. Here we are almost 10 years later. We'll have our 10-year anniversary here in May. And there's just as much to report, just as much to say as ever before. We're going to hit some of that news today. We're also going to open up the phone lines in the second hour of the show. You can be the first person to call into this show in the year 2011. Hopefully you'll make it good. A lot of news to recover, a lot of news to deassemble and to disassemble and to deprogram. We'll get to all of that on the show today. We got a bunch of really good guests coming in this week. I'll let you know when I can tell you. And we're back on track with having a lot of guests on the show, but not today. Just too much to cover. We've got a lot to do, as we do every Monday. Here are some of the things we're going to be covering on the show today. No doubt you've heard about this. We were one of the first to post it. Not only has there been a 20-mile fish kill in Arkansas, 100,000 dead fish washing up on the shores, a freak thing, but this was just after thousands of blackbirds fell from the sky in Arkansas. What could be behind that? It's in the air, it's in the water. It is either, of course, some kind of electronic magno weapon, or they sprayed something in Arkansas. The people there very concerned, as you might be. Oh, don't worry about this, madam. We're here in hazmat suits to clean up the mess. What would you do if this happened in your backyard? Maybe some of you are in Arkansas and can tell us firsthand what you did and what is going on there. We're doing our best to get to the bottom of it, and we'll give you what we know here and what we suspect here very soon. Could have something to do with this. Star Wars in Iraq. Secret weapons tested during the invasion and the occupation of Iraq. We've talked about this with Bruce Gagnon and others, how this was the space war. And, of course, as we're talking about World War III, or however you're counting, it could be World War V, depending on who you talk to. War is going to be in space. So we've got that for you today. AIPAC still fighting over the disclosure of its secret files. They protest, and a former Google employee says disconnect your computer now. So yes, and a whole lot more. We'll get to as much as we can on the show today. Stay with us, please. Oracle Broadcasting and Affiliates, Deadline Live. I'm your video gun, Jack Blood. Stay with us. No, that is not Phil Collins. It's a cover of that song. Pretty apropos, no matter what decade you're in. It's Disturbed covering this tune. The Land of Confusion. Oh, yeah, that's another thing. It just follows you around wherever you go. I'm going to go to Costa Rica, Jack, and get away from it all. No, you're not. You might think you are, but you're not. Stay here and fight. Got a great letter from one of our friends today. He said, this is the year, this 2011 year, not that this particular individual hasn't done this in the past, but I'm going to take the bull by the horns this year. I'm turning everything up. I'm turning all knobs to 11. These go to 11. Much better than 10. So you've got to just add that extra notch on your rack mount. Thanks for joining us, folks. It's great to be back with you here for 2011. Of course, it is the first day, our first show of the new year. I am Jack Blood, and you are listening to Oracle Broadcasting and Affiliates. I don't care what Shoutcast tells you. It's a little mistake there. We have posted a ton of news for you. One of the things we posted over the weekend was just really weird, really bizarre. I know you've heard a little bit about this. We're going to have to speculate here because guess what? The government or the state of Arkansas or the EPA or anyone else, they're not talking. Why did 4,000 blackbirds fall from the sky all of a sudden in Beebe, Arkansas? And subsequently, why did hundreds of thousands of fish die? What could have been behind all of this? And it's going to be a perfect segue here because we had done a whole show back again on what in the world are they spraying. Is this just an amalgamation of various agents, or was this some kind of a test, as they've done in the past? Quite a record of not only spraying, but using technotronic weapons on the people just to test. Of course, we remember what they did here to this country and into France, spraying LSD on entire populations just to see how they'd react. Or could this be HARP gone haywire? A lot of people would believe something like that. Here's the story, if you've not heard it. This report here from the local TV, I guess, in Arkansas.
Just before folks in Beebe rang in the new year, many witnessed an uncanny resemblance to the Hitchcock movie, The Birds. 2,000 blackbirds fell from the sky off Wynwood Drive, covering about a mile, leaving quite the mess to clean up. THV's Katharina Yancey has the details on our top story from the Information Center.
How close is Beebe to Mina?
Actually, folks I spoke with initially thought the birds were poisoned because they're what they call a nuisance around this time every year. But they are surprised to hear it's more of a mystery.
Millions every night. You look up at the sky, it's just black. And then last night about 10:30. I come out here and seen a bird drop.
In a matter of hours on New Year's Eve, thousands of birds fell from the sky to their death.
And I just immediately called Mom because I had to go to work. And I said, you've got to come get the kids and get the dog because I don't know what's going on, but I don't want them messing with any of them. It was horrible. You could not even get down the road without running over hundreds. It was that bad.
The mystery is unraveling like scenes from a movie. Dozens of U.S. Environmental Service crews spent the day picking up the birds, walking between homes and
don't worry, it's just a movie.
With
this isn't actually happening.
Suits and breathing masks.
Right.
Nobody knows. I asked these guys who was out here picking them up, and they don't seem to know anything. Nobody knows anything. Just kind of freaked everybody out.
Officials with the Arkansas Game and Fish Commission flew over the area and determined it's a 1-mile stretch. There are a variety of dead blackbirds, mostly red-winged, and a duck was also found. No one has been evacuated because ADEQ's air quality test came back clean for toxins.
Walking around in masks, and I'm wondering
that is if you trust
the same thing, because what makes that happen for them just to drop out of the sky like that?
This is the only bird I have seen alive. He seems to be injured, just walking in circles and not making any sounds, and he can't fly.
We got one on the roof.
Officials will confirm their findings when they get the test results. Until then, they are given these possible scenarios: lightning, stress, high-altitude hail, or startled by fireworks. But neighbors just want answers.
Something out of a movie, exactly. Hazmat people walking around, and not telling us anything.
I'd like to know. Kind of spooky.
The end of the world if you live in Beebe, Arkansas.
The birds should be cleaned up by tomorrow. Game and Fish Commission's Karen Rose says poisoning does not appear to be the case, and strange events similar to this have occurred across the globe a number of times. Ashley?
All right, Katharina, thank you. The city of Beebe held an emergency city council meeting to approve paying the U.S. Environmental Services to clean up the neighborhood. So far, 65 dead birds have been sent off for testing.
Well, I mean, how many of you think that we're going to get to the bottom of this? How many of you think that the government or the local municipalities are going to tell us what happened in Beebe, Arkansas, and why couldn't that happen anywhere else? The thing that really is weird about all of this is that it was a 1 mile, now this is just the birds, we haven't gotten to the fish yet, but it's just a mile in perimeter of where this all, it happened in one very localized area. What killed these birds? And why were there some still alive? Why are the people still alive? Now, it would be, you'd have a lot of people that were very sick. Let's just use our powers of common denominator deductions here. You would have a lot of sick people. You would have traces of any kind of a chemical substance just about everywhere. That is, if, as I might have suspected at first, that this was some kind of a spraying operation. That's very difficult to hide, at least in this day and age. Now, how cordoned off this area is and how easy it is for people to do their own independent studies is really something I don't know. All I do know is that, no, this is not lightning. It's not fireworks or even high-altitude hail. This, of course, wouldn't explain the fish kill. One BB resident was in Iraq. He's seen nothing like this. No one has ever seen anything like this. And of course, again, you've got kids and people around here, and they're walking around with chemical suits. These hazmat people in hazmat uniforms, gas masks, and everything. I mean, how scary would that be if that happened in your backyard? Be interested. I know we have listeners in Arkansas. I'd be interested to hear, what we maybe aren't getting out of the perimeter, because generally when you're inside a news story, like some of you are, you're going to get a lot more information. Information that's not going to be printed in the mainstream media. Now, this was added to that. Now, if that wasn't enough, if that wasn't suspicious enough, if that isn't enough to, have you question your so-called environment, then you have this: 100,000 fish turn up dead near Ozark. All of this very close to Little Rock, from what I can tell.
Game and Fish tonight trying to figure out why 100,000 fish in northwest Arkansas turned up dead. They were found along a 20-mile stretch between the Ozark Dam and Highway 109 bridge. That's in Franklin County. THV's Catherine Yancey tonight has the story.
The 20-mile stretch along the Arkansas River, where an estimated 100,000 drumfish were found floating and washed ashore, looks much different now.
We got a call last week from a tugboat operator that found the fish out on the river, along the banks, and in the river channel. And we immediately dispatched somebody to the area to take a look.
Investigators from local and state agencies took samples from the affected area.
It's from about the Ozark Pool to Highway 109 bridge.
Keith Stevens with the Arkansas Game and Fish Commission says fish kills occur every year, but the magnitude of this one is unusual, and disease could have been the cause. A pollutant would have affected cross species.
99% of them were drum, which is a bottom feeder. It's not a game fish in Arkansas.
Some fish collected were alive and visibly sick. They have been taken to the University of Arkansas at Pine Bluff for testing. The affected area was never closed, and fishing is encouraged.
Go out there, you can still fish for bass, for crappie, for catfish. They'll be fine. Obviously, don't eat the dead fish.
As for cleanup, nature is taking its course.
We'll have raccoons and birds and things like that will take care of it. So there's really no cleanup. It's really too big. It's contained along the river channel.
In Ozark, Catherine Yancey.
So it looks like the fish kill is, I'm going to guess, about 100 miles away from the bird kill. So, I mean, here are two seemingly separate incidents that came at the same time, which has just about everybody scratching their heads. People have been theorizing, that this could be electromagnetic scalar weapons that can potentially manipulate artificially its environment, that this could be responsible for all of these die-offs. But now, again, we could get one expert. I know, I think it's Tom Bearden is one of the main experts on this, on a technology that we only know the military-industrial complex was involved in testing. But so far, well, good luck trying to find them testing. Good luck trying to find it and I'm talking about scalar weapons, not electromagnetic weapons in general, but scalar weapons. Going to be difficult to find this in practice and to find whistleblowers that know about it. I mean, this is really what we get with these dead biologists. They kill the people that develop the technology. They get rid of, dead men tell no tales, they get rid of any witnesses that work on technologies that can kill or control mass amounts of people. So this is very difficult. We do know, of course, if we go back to 1997, Defense Secretary William Cohn, quote, others are engaging, and maybe he was referring to the bad guys, the evildoers, I'll leave that up to you. I don't think so, all in whole. Others are engaging even an eco type of terrorism, whereby you can alter the climate, set up earthquakes, volcanoes remotely through the use of electromagnetic waves. There are plenty of ingenious minds out there that are working to find ways which they can wreak terror upon other nations. It's real, and that's the reason why we have to intensify our efforts. Counterterrorism, of course. Now, anything that, and this is easy to suspect the evildoers of having such weapons, whether that be China or Russia or main superpowers or even, little guys in a cave in Afghanistan or Pakistan somewhere, because you have them. Anything you have to suspect that somebody else has. Now, the fact in these kills that illnesses or poisons have been ruled out points to something new, something fantastic. Or I guess it could just all be a coincidence. The U.S. government repeatedly caught engaging in illegal bioweapons tests over American skies. Maimed, killed not just animals, but humans. And that's the weird thing about this. No humans seem to have been affected by this. Now, could this be some kind of a new weapon, maybe using some kind of an electromagnetic charge, or some kind of a new bioweapon that is specific to a certain species, or non-humans? Of course, if we speculate a little bit here, and you bear with me, if you wanted to go in and put a foreign government or a regional area to its knees, what would you do? You kill all the animals. You kill their food. You'd radiate their food. You'd radiate or kill their animals, creating mass starvation. Of course, food is a weapon. This is what the United Nations reminds us of quite a bit. Food and water are weapons. Pretty easy to get into the whole history of government biological testing. And we've done quite a few stories on it in the past, whether it's syphilis, malaria, or other bacteriological agents. The book about Frank Olson gets into quite a lot of this, and there's several more of those to come. In 1966, the U.S. Army dispensed Bacillus subtilis. It's a variant bacteria, as I think the name would suggest. That was done throughout New York City in the subway system. In 1977, Senate hearings on health and scientific research confirmed that 239 populated areas had been contaminated with biological agents between 1949 and 1969, including San Francisco, Washington, D.C., Key West, Panama, Minneapolis, and St. Louis. Now, I don't have the best capability right now because of my computer situation to test and find bird kills, fish kills, and to try to cull together some kind of common sense evidence. So speculation is what we have. All I do know is that every excuse given doesn't add up. August 1994, residents of Oakville, Washington, reported tiny blobs of gelatinous goo raining from the sky. 1997, residents of the Everett area, Washington, where I grew up, luckily I wasn't there now, reported a similar phenomenon. Where's the traces of all of this? Given the history of governments around the world performing these unwitting experiments in their populations, we have to suspect something here. The EPA's own policy states the government and industry scientists can treat children as human guinea pigs in chemical experiments, which allows pesticides to be tested on mentally handicapped children and orphans. Again, this just happening on a regular basis. There's no way to deny it. I tried to get that a little bit into what in the world are they spraying. Just the fact that we know that by aerosoling these agents, you can pretty much localize them anywhere that you want to. Anybody else have any other theories? See, the one thing we do on this show and how we try to put our work together is to eliminate some of the main media explanations, the government explanations to things that happen. Of course, 9/11, we can go run through all that again for the umpteenth millionth time. Look at the 77 Senate hearings. This is all, now we're not doing this anymore. You do understand, well, that's back when things were a little out of control. We stopped doing those things. Oh, did you? Ask the people in Beebe, Arkansas, or ask the people near the Ozarks where these fish kills happen. It's not working for me. I'm not buying into it. We don't know. We just don't know at this time. But I suspect electromagnetic weapons of some kind. How does it kill certain fish at the bottom? I don't know. This also just in, technology created 50 rainstorms in Abu Dhabi's desert region last year. That's right. We've got to get in Frank Albarelli to potentially talk to us about that. In a similar story, we've got several new stories of the military testing secret weapons, both during the invasion in Iraq and and all over the world. I mean, right, but again, look, they're testing them here. This is the thing you got to understand. And a lot of people, well, it's okay if we go out. We need these new weapons. We've got to stay one step ahead of the competition. We've got to test the weapons somehow. And yes, we test them during war. We use these overseas, but we don't use them here. And that is where I think people have a big problem. That's what they don't understand. Of course, we're getting into something, this can of worms where, it goes right back to what we talk about, these neurotoxins, excitotoxins in our food, the fluoride in our water, whatever's in our air. We got sprayed really bad here yesterday. And I'm getting to talk to some of my more, I call them secular friends. This has nothing to do with religion, but people who don't spend a lot of time thinking about the things that you and I might. And we got into quite a little discussion about chemtrails, because that is now something that it's very hard to ignore. I don't know. I also don't know what that noise is. We'll investigate that during the break. We've got this video. It's 45 minutes long, so I'm not going to play it. Star Wars in Iraq, secret weapons tested during the invasion and occupation of Iraq. And this is the thing. This is why we really have to understand what going to war means. This is something, I thought Scott Ritter did a pretty good job talking about when he was here once, and we did a gig together for the people. And I had asked him about depleted uranium, and he just, without blinking, look, this is how war is. You people need to understand that. This isn't a video game. This isn't something that someone else's problem. This problem always comes back home. The chickens always come back home to roost. Whether it's economic, or whether it's social engineering, or whether it's occupation, or, whether it's these funky weapons that they're constantly testing. Whether it's depleted uranium. Depleted uranium comes home with our soldiers. And, of course, we've got to remember that a lot of depleted uranium used on war fronts, not only, and we've got a story here, people scared to have children in Iraq. I guess this is a pretty good population controller, because they are sure that these children will be birth defected. They've seen this happen over and over and over again. And in a way, what happens is, after all of this environmental, I'll use that term, geographical carnage, the only way we can get through it is help from our controllers. And again, this goes back to what Doug Owen was talking about on his show on Friday, getting you to beg for your slavery. Look, I'm scared to death of the swine flu. That's back out. Children's epidemic for swine flu. Please vaccinate me. Oh, I'm scared about these birds dying. I'm scared everyone around me's got cancer. Just tell me what to do so I can live, so I can survive. We'll get into a lot more of this and a whole lot of news right here. Deadline Live, Oracle Broadcasting. Please stay with us. Welcome back. 866-841-1065. Now, I was thinking about it, and we have a local number, but because we have a guest tomorrow from Germany, it just reminded me that if you're from outside the United States, you probably can't call on a toll-free number. You're going to have to call on 512-904-8014. If you live outside the United States, write that down. Put it next to your phone if you listen to this show or any of the shows here on Oracle Broadcasting and Affiliates, and that way you can call in to Oracle. 512-904-8014. If you live outside the United States, a lot of times you can't use those toll-free numbers. Toll-free 866-841-1065. Just thinking about this bird fish kill thing, and of course the missing bees, all of these environmental consequences that we're seeing, this could have as much to do with pollution as anything else. We have to remember that birds and fish are just more sensitive, that they die. We, of course, live for 20 more years before we get soft tissue cancer or any one of these many maladies. So that if something was in the air, something that is being covered up, or something was in the water, or something, was coming out of the garbage or through the soil, some kind of chemical poisoning or even biological poisoning, it may not actually show up in the humans for quite some time. I think what I'd be doing if I lived in one of these areas is that, get your hair out at the root, get some of that tested if you're really curious about this. And if this happened over my head in my backyard, I'd be pretty freaking curious. I'd want to know exactly what's going on, and I don't even live there, and I am now because I know you do. 866-841-1065. I want to go to Brian in Oklahoma City, who is officially our first caller of the new year. Thank you, Brian. Appreciate you being with us.
I was watching YouTube and last night, and I saw an independent Russian news channel that had a report that some Taliban fighters turned themselves in, and then they put them in shipping containers, like thousands of them. And there's a bunch of witnesses that were interviewed, and even some of the I think it was the Afghanistan military even saying, yeah, well, we did put them in containers, but we poked holes in it, like you had insects in a box or something and you poked holes in it. Did you hear about that?
I did not. But I do know that Halliburton has done that in the past with some of their employees that after, they want to talk about the raping and robbing and everything going on, that has happened in the past. Wouldn't be the first time. Also, the holding facilities are getting harder and harder to find over there. So that's just makeshift. Did they die? I don't know. What happened?
Yeah, I don't remember the name of the video, but it's on YouTube. I think if you probably put in Taliban in containers, in shipping containers or something, probably come up. But
all right, well, I'll look for that, and if anybody else knows any more than that. Is that a problem? I don't know. I mean, now let's take it at face value first. These are Taliban fighters. They're killing our people over there, allegedly. I mean, they have, you said they gave themselves up.
Yes.
Yeah. They are technically prisoners of war in this instance.
Yeah.
Maybe they're going to ship that container right off to the United States and have them come work over here. Operation Taliban paperclip.
I don't know, but
anything else, man?
Yeah. It seems like all of our science is polluted with misinformation, and we just don't even know what we can trust as good information anymore. You open up whatever article or whatever scientific study, and it's really disappointing because
it's pretty important to know that stuff, isn't it, Brian? I mean, and this is why I have suggested for years that we have some kind of a citizens panel or commission that is not tainted or touched by the military, security, industrial complex or the government and its operators and agents, so that we can monitor and oversee what technologies are out there, whether they be good or bad. What I do is I, try to confirm things in a number of unrelated reports and try to forge the truth for myself. Some of it is just intuition. But look, I mean, that's the case. Do we know what they really have? We're talking about scalar weapons and race-specific bioweapons and some of the things we don't know until it's already too late. They're 20 years ahead of us usually, though I think we're beginning to catch up here. Pretty important for us to know this. Meanwhile, I'm sorry to say a lot of Americans are very busy and can't be bothered knowing what's going on in the technotronic era. Call that.
I think somewhere, some government person has the real Google on their computer that has, you know, the actual facts instead of all the misinformation mixed in with it, you know. And
we always assume that it's misinformation if it's coming from the mainstream media or the government or the usual suspects, and I just do anyway. But if you can confirm it on several unrelated places, and you know, you're looking at you know, diagrams and schematics and documented information, and that is something, of course, we can, I guess, trust. But what can you trust? We live in a matrix, so we do the best we can.
You know, the global warming issue, their measurements, their findings, you know, or even things on a much larger scale. I mean, what if?
But that stuff does seem to hammer itself out eventually, doesn't it, Brian?
Oh, like they're starting to get busted on their lying, is what you're saying? Yeah.
Exactly. And that's the thing. I mean, you can't. This is what the debunkers always say, right? Conspiracy debunkers. Oh, the government can't keep a secret, and yada, yada, yada. Yeah, they can for a pretty long time. They've done it before many times in the past. They can keep a secret, but not forever. They really can't. Now, in the real-time aspect, when we need this information, and that's the important thing here to note, it's very difficult to get these people to come forward because they're very good at covering their tracks, Brian. But we always seem to kind of find out about it. The problem is, in my estimation, is that when we find out something, that some diabolical thing that had happened using science or otherwise, 10, 15 years ago, they go, oh, okay, but we don't do that anymore, and people just trust that. Though you have this pattern of repeated abuses year after year, decade after decade. It's like, people saying, well, Iran-Contra, that's not a big deal. That happened, 20, 30 years ago. I can't do anything about it now. And then you look at the geopolitical relationship with Iran and the Middle East and some of these things that came out of that because of what we did. And it is very important to understand that not only is that not over and all those people are in power today, but that it can happen again and again and again and again unless we put up some kind of safeguards to make sure it doesn't. The people need to get a lot more involved in this arena of our lives. Otherwise, we're going to be the birds falling to the ground.
Do you think ancestors of war criminals or just criminals in general that inherit, the profits of these actions, do you think they should be able to keep No, so like the Kennedys that profited off of Prohibition, even though it was their grandfather.
Crime is different because crime is a matter of geography. Wouldn't you admit, Brian, what is immoral and illegal here is not immoral and illegal somewhere else? And I personally, unless you're killing people over your bootlegging, I don't know if that's ill-gotten gains that should be given back. What I do know is that the Nazi profits and war profits from, I'm sure, the Kennedy family as well as the Bush family, the Harriman family, and the rest, that needs to be reappropriated for the people.
Yeah, even if, you didn't yourself inherit it, you didn't commit any crimes, but they can still take it.
Yeah, I mean, and I'm going to do a story on George Soros here in a minute. I mean, look at his ill-gotten gains of wiping out entire economies, the pain and the suffering he's caused in order to make his billions. So should that be scrutinized? Absolutely.
Yes, absolutely. But what about 50 years from now, his great-grandson or something?
Yeah.
And should we be able to take the money from his great-grandson? 50 years from now?
Not the money, I guess, that he made on his own, but certainly the money that came from George Soros or any one of these other war criminals, sure. Yeah, I mean, if we don't do this, because this is how they shelter it and hide it. This can be diverted off to offspring and to people that you may not even know are their offspring, because we know how these people work. So tracing it sometimes can even be a problem, and that's why you kind of got to get it while you can in the very beginning. But this is all very selectively enforced. There are people that do have to give back their ill-gotten gains. We look at some of the Nazis, for instance, but no, not the rest. Not the rest of them. It's just selectively enforced. Right now, Bernie Madoff's trying to pay off his victims.
Will you put me on hold so I can listen?
Sure. Thanks, Brian. Appreciate the call, the feedback, and all the rest. Our phone lines are open. I'll try to answer questions. I didn't even hear about that container story. 866-841-1065, 512-904-8014. I'm Jack Blood, Deadline Live. Well, are you confused? I couldn't blame you if you were. Brian from Oklahoma City just calling in. How do we trust and how do we know anything? You've just got to trust yourself, and, you know, you put these filters up, you start to know when something is bullshit and when it isn't. The Great Love and Rockets, we actually interviewed Daniel Ash on the show we had before this one, so I'm going to dig some of that stuff up for you guys someday. It's interesting. Yeah, I'm still thinking about trying to make sense of the bird and fish kill in Arkansas, and I'm beginning to wonder, because my first inclination was birds falling from the sky. That's HARP. Okay? If you guys don't know what HARP is, if you go look at the story, we do this a lot at DeadlineLive.info. We'll put together a story like that, then we'll link you to a story on HARP, which many have called a weapon of mass destruction. But I'm not sure that's going to affect the fish in that way. So I'm wondering if perhaps that thing bounced or got turned up and maybe, I don't know, accidentally? Who knows? The birds all got killed, and they went, let's throw them off the track and kill some of these fish. Because the two can't really be, it's a lot more difficult to connect the dots with two incidents affecting two different kinds of species. I just wouldn't put it past them to do that. Still looking for anyone in Arkansas. We used to have a ton of listeners over there. I don't know if we still do. Write me if you're listening to this show on a rebroadcast and let me know what you're really seeing over there and what you might suspect and what else is not leaking through to the media. Adverse effects on women, children, and men, and, humans. Maybe we're just not hearing about that. I don't know. I don't mean to put out a theory here, folks, but when we don't know anything, when we don't have any quality information, we really have no choice, do we? All right, George Soros, I don't even know if this is news, because this is just something he says all the time, but this is making the rounds today. The United States must stop resisting the orderly decline of the dollar, in other words, admitting that there is an orderly decline of the dollar, that it is engineered for your benefit. And also they must stop resisting the New World Order. Now, a New World Order is a pretty loose term, isn't it? It can mean the New World Order, American hegemony, American imperialism, as some people try to say, but that doesn't explain why people around the world, from Russia, from China to the Eurozone and others, are all calling for a New World Order. We have decoded that as global governance. Here is a little piece, a little interview with George Soros, where he just kind of lays it all out.
What sort of a financial deal should Obama be seeking to strike when he travels to China next month?
No, I think this would be the time, because you really need to bring China into the creation of a new world order.
He was looking for another term.
World order. They are kind of reluctant members of the IMF. They play along, but they don't make much of a contribution because it's not their institution. Their share is not commensurate. Their voting rights are not commensurate to their weight. So I think you need a new world order that China has to be part of the process of creating it, and they have to buy in. They have to own it the same way as, let's say, the United States owns the Washington Consensus, the current order. And I think this would be a more stable one, where you would have a coordinated policies. I think the makings of it are already there, because the G20, in agreeing to peer reviews, effectively is moving in that direction.
Given this continued weakness in the U.S. economy, are people right to start to be concerned about the dollar?
Well, they are, of course, and the dollar is a very weak currency, except for all the others. So there is a general sort of lack of confidence in currencies, and a move away from currencies into real assets. The Chinese are continuing to run a big trade surplus, and they're still accumulating assets. And basically the renminbi is permanently undervalued because it's tied to the dollar. There is a diversification from assets that normally held by central banks into other assets.
Yeah, what he's saying is, look, I mean, a lot of this is newspeak, of course, and this is how these people talk in Orwellian newspeak in terms that really where only they understand themselves and where you can't really understand it. But what he's saying is this: is you've got to stop resisting, as we mentioned, the orderly. This is the designed crashing of the dollar, and you need to accept a global currency. And that you need to have the IMF and the World Bank and the Bank of International Settlements might be thrown in there, but a global super central bank making sure everybody's okay. And we know what a great job they've done, even on smaller centralized levels, of stealing everything. Because this is where the control, this is where he's cut in. He's dealt in on this hand, George Soros. This is why they had to bring their own man in, and that is Cousin Barry Obama. That these guys, they're sitting at the poker table, and they're, figuring out how to get this pie and all these chips for themselves. Meanwhile, every once in a while, they catch a guy with a card up his sleeve, and they shoot him. We just got this in today. A former Bush aide found in a landfill, murdered. Of course, again, going back to Bernie Madoff, we've got to have at least some people go down here, else they think that we're not protecting their interests. But this is it. And what it gets down to is a threat. Look, if you don't do this, this is what's going to start happening to you. And they need to convey this message through the media, and they need everybody on the same page with this. And I think New World Order is a term maybe in 2011 we just need to get rid of. It's global governance, yes. There's nothing new about it. And if you look at the world economic system now, if you look at even the globalized military, globalized police forces, we're going to have to come to terms with the fact that most likely we're already in world government. It's just a matter of cleaning it up, finishing it all up. And so if you don't stop resisting, if you become a quote-unquote isolationist, something must be done about you. And something must be done to punish you into this. Now, of course, again, this gets back into the discussion. Can they punish you into total, complete technotronic slavery? I just don't think so. But how many people, once the grocery stores are falling apart and the food stops coming, I mean, how many people who can't go out and get a job when massive unemployment is really what it is, and it's 30% or 40%, and there's people out on the streets in breadline. How many of those people are going to say, look, you guys shut up. We need to do what this guy's saying. Look how we're suffering. And these warnings have been coming across from Timmy Geithner, from Larry Summers, from the helicopter Ben Bernanke and the Federal Reserve for years now. Do it our way or else you'll be suffering. And isn't this exactly what the Cousin Barry Obama administration was saying, and even the Cousin George Bush administration? You're going to have to bail these guys out. You're going to have to go along with it, or a massive Great Depression will grip you. Of course, you got the older people going, I don't want to go there again. They cut off their meds. Your TV won't come on anymore. You won't have any electricity. These are some of the threats that they're throwing down. You've got to stop resisting. Just do what we tell you. No, George Soros, you frickin' war criminal. Absolutely not, you turd-munching piece of crap. We'll be right back. Second hour, Deadline Live, coming your way.
Hard-hitting news. Alternative talk radio. Get ready, America, for Deadline Live with your host, Jack Blood. Deadline Live is the daily wrap-up for those too busy in the daily grind to discern and dissect the news. While the so-called mainstream media buries the truth, Jack Blood uncovers it, exposing the lies that our trusted government officials do not want us to know. And now, please welcome Jack Blood.
We are locked and loaded for the Propaganda War. Second hour of Deadline Live coming your way. It is January 3rd, 2011. Man, I got to get used to saying that. I'm Jack Blood, your narrator, your radio gun reporting for the next hour. We're on the air Monday through Friday, 3 o'clock to 5 o'clock p.m. Central Time. That's 4 to 6 on the East Coast. There's a lot of ways you can listen by going to deadlinelive.info. I want to thank everybody that contributed to our last very small chip-in, getting Kristen some well-needed equipment so that we can make YouTubes and start developing more TV-related visual information and original content. That's going to be great, and you guys, you really definitely earned my respect for that. That money didn't even go near me. It went right to her. And also speedcult.com. We contributed your banner to this cause as well, so we even took some money that was coming in for completely unrelated thing and popping that in there. Speaking of Kristen, she had written me talking about what Brian's question about the Taliban surrendering and going into these containers. She says in the documentary Road to Gitmo, I have not seen it. They mention putting people in shipping containers in the hot sun for hours and then shooting the containers. Just business as usual by our local wonderful governments around the world and our controllers. So there you go, Brian. Also, we'll give you some information in this hour on the former Bush aide that was murdered and found in a landfill. They're even calling this murder. It is John Parsons Wheeler III. He was a Yale Law School graduate, defense industry consultant. His last job was Assistant Secretary of the Air Force under Junior. And he had lately campaigned to return the ROTC to Ivy League campuses. He must have known something else. They're blaming this already on maybe one of the neighbors. So another Bush, friend of Bush, or friend of Clinton, or even friend of Barry. They don't do very well. This is what happens to you. I warn you, if you're listening now from the Department of Homeland Security or wherever you might be listening, don't play the game with these people because you're expendable in a collective environment such as this. Please go to deadlinelive.info and you can check out all the information we have there. Popeye, our friend who's now doing a show from federaljack.com right here on Oracle, has a great clip there of how he went in and educated his local, I believe, city council or commission on the issues of fluoride. And I think that's interesting to watch. It's something you can maybe learn. So check that out. While you're there, please, at our website, go check out our sponsors, speedcult.com, as I just mentioned. Great friends of ours, great sponsors up in Detroit. They make original stuff. They can custom make anything out of metal or what have you. They've got great merchandise and T-shirts and all kinds of stuff. Go check them out if you're looking for that present you never did get your friend for Christmas. And, of course, Enterfood.com. This entire show powered by Enterfood. Enterfood.com. Go right through our site. Discounts still remain for the next week or two. Get a hold of those. We'll be right back. Stay with us.
Just a kind of a bad human being. I can't stand nothing, boy. I got the Globes Lester. I'll massacre your ass as fast as bullets, cause I'm mean. Yeah, I'm a mean.
Well, maybe we need to get a little meaner and leaner here for 2011. Oh, I'm so glad. I love the holidays. You know, we have children and family and a lot of friends, and I'm just really glad it's done now. It's such a huge distraction, and I want to buckle down and do some serious work here. We're not going to have too many more shows where we cover just a million news stories. I like doing that because there's so much to cover, and I don't hear it on the regular news, and I like to kind of throw my take in here and there and get your take, of course, as well. But I'm thinking a lot more about dedicating and simplifying, and so we want to run, 2-3 topics at the most on our show and just get in depth on those. So we're going to change our style a little bit here in 2011. I'll call it refinement because every year I have to assess, what are we accomplishing? What are we doing here? So you can you'll be able to see this take shape here very shortly. We've still got a lot of work to do on our technical end, just absolutely assaulted here over the last couple of months, and we've got to kind of rebuild our systems as well. So I appreciate your patience and you being here, and also appreciate you getting out and telling people about Oracle Broadcasting or whatever affiliate you're listening to now, whatever it might be. Get out and tell people what you listen to, where you listen, and you're doing your job at that point. We need that kind of help. As much as I like this to be a nice little intimate gathering, it's good like that, right? But we do need to expand, and we're all going to be working on that as well. Might have to stay with technology and science because there's just so much of it. In the first hour, we covered this bizarre bird and fish kill in Arkansas, trying to make sense of that. This is, again, the problem with war, is it gives these people the money, the opportunity, and the guinea pigs to test all their wonderful new equipment. Imagine if there were no wars. How would they be able to do this? In laboratories, okay. But then again, the citizens are overseeing this. And again, this is such an important thing that I've been harping on, no pun intended, for, well, maybe, for years. The fact that we live in this time, this bridge of space and time that the world has never experienced before, and what kind of a responsibility we have for that. The Army has come out now, or the Air Force, sorry, the Armed Forces, again, naming one of their weapons of mass destruction on Greek mythology. They've come out now with the Gorgon. They can see everything. Now, of course, this is just a partial admission, and when you're going to see these stories, we're talking about weather modification, all these stories, you're going to see that, well, we're putting together a program for geoengineering. They're beta testing it and taking your temperature to see what kind of resistance to that you might have, or that your community might have. If there's none, then they roll forward, business as usual. If there is some, then they got to take a better pain to try to hide it from you or justify it. And this is what they're in the business of doing. You want to sell naked scanners for airports, for schools, for courtrooms, I guess for retail outlets. You got to have an underwear bomber. In ancient times, Gorgon was a mythical Greek creature whose unblinking eyes turned to stone. Those who beheld them. It is an off-take on Medusa. See, everything Greek just changed its name when it became Roman, and then changed its name again when it goes down through the generations. His unblinking eyes turned to stone. Those who beheld them. Don't look in his eyes. In modern times, Gorgon may be one of the military's most valuable new tools. This winter, the Air Force is set to deploy, let's read, already been deploying and testing, and now admitting, to Afghanistan. What it says is a revolutionary airborne surveillance system called Gorgon Stare, which will be able to transmit live video images of physical movement across an entire town. Does anyone out there believe they can't do that now? I mean, if I go to Google Maps, I can see a picture of my house once I went there and saw my kid out in front of it. What's the difference? The system is made up of 9 video cameras mounted on a remotely piloted aircraft that can transmit live images to soldiers on the ground or to analysts tracking enemy movements, and they can set up the drones. And let me ask you, so now they're admitting that they have this, finally. Because when I was grilling Colonel Oliver North on this very issue, he was in denial, as he is at just about everything else. I'm just a nice little boy who goes out and helps the troops. But let's ask this question. So now that you have this, I mean, I could think of something we could do with it. How about if we go into Afghanistan and we use the Gorgon to see where all that opium is going? Oh, that's not going to happen. Oh, okay. Can't do that. It can only watch you. It can't watch giant crops of heroin. No. I can't do that. Gorgon can send up to 65 different images to different users. By contrast, Air Force drones today shoot video from a single camera over a soda straw area the size of a building or two. They don't have satellites, okay? They don't exist. It's a conspiracy theory. With the new tool, analysts will no longer have to guess where to point the camera. So this is Major James Poss. He's the Air Force Assistant Deputy Chief of staff for intelligence and surveillance and reconnaissance. Gorgon Stare will be looking at a whole city. Your entire city will be monitored, unlike it is now. Oh, that's right. There's millions of cameras, not including the little cameras that you carry with you at all times. You are the New World Order surveillance device. Your personal surveillance devices. You help them on a regular basis, don't you? So they'll be looking at a whole city from up above and on the street with the various surveillance closed-circuit TV monitors. There'll be no way for the adversary to know what we're looking at. I mean, you just guarantee they can see everything. Does anyone not believe that now? I know, I guess it sounds paranoid in this Technotronic era. Well, they can't do that. Yes, of course they can. They can and they do. Is it any wonder? I mean, all that are left are some really stupid criminals who are constantly getting caught, or some very smart ones that take this into consideration, know how to jam this kind of stuff. And how do they know how to do that? They read the manual. Wink, wink. Questions persist, however, about whether the military has the capability to sift through the huge quantities of imagery quickly enough to convey useful data to troops on the field. Well, they'll look for certain anomalies, and they'll be able to do that to some extent, but this is more about databasing everything. You find out where you are at all times, where you were at all times. Well, I mean, this issue comes up again and again and again. Just came up recently on our forum, jackbloodforum.com. If I'm just minding my own business and I'm not doing anything, I have nothing to hide, I shouldn't have to worry. Wrong. No, if you happen to be standing next to somebody who is of ill repute, or you happen to be in the wrong place at the wrong time, then that can be matched up with what's on your Facebook. By the way, Goldman Sachs just bought a good chunk of a Facebook IPO. That's right, they own Facebook now, part of it. CIA, Facebook. Man of the Year! Facebook. But this is what was all predicted. This is all happening in the same way that everybody knew it was going to happen. What they could not really prognosticate, what they could not really psychically imbibe to you is that people just wouldn't care. The Gorgon Stare. I think my kid has some kind of a Gorgon shirt for one of the video games or whatever. I don't know where that came from, but we're going to sacrifice it tonight to Gorgon. The Air Force is exponentially increasing surveillance across Afghanistan. Just there, nowhere else. The monthly number of unmanned and manned aircraft surveillance sorties has more than doubled since last January and quadrupled since the beginning of 2009. Thank you very much, Cousin Barry Obama, man of peace. Indeed, officials say they can't keep pace with the demand. I have yet to go a week in my job here without having to request for more Air Force surveillance out there. It's just not enough surveillance. That's the problem. And let's look at this. Try to be as logical as we can. Use our common sense here. That's our best weapon. Okay. So they have this massive surveillance capability, from the satellites that'll never be mentioned, to close circuit to TV cameras, to now Gorgon or whatever, and still they can't catch Osama bin Laden because he's dead, and they can't really ever catch any of these evildoers. These Emmanuel Goldsteins out there. But nothing ever seems to change. They can't get a handle on. There's a letter that leaked today that Saddam Hussein had written from captivity. We got to see some of it. The rest of it, I'm sure, we didn't get to see. But this is what he says. This could all be stopped right now. But they don't want to stop it. This, of course, gives the military and the powers to be an excuse to be in Afghanistan. The longest-running war in American history. More dead last year than all the other years put together in Afghanistan. More dead in Iraq, even though the war is supposed to be over. Our troops dying over there. And increasing surveillance. Increasing surveillance capabilities that are being used in real battlefield situations that will come back home and be used on you, and it is already. The drones have doubled and quadrupled under Lord Cousin Barry Obama. Officials say they can't keep pace with the demand for intelligence and information. Of course they can't, because it's never enough. I have yet to go a week in my job without having a request for more Air Force surveillance. Adding the Gorgon stare also generate oceans of more data to process. Today, an analyst sits there and stares at, death TV. That's what the article says in the Bilderberg Post. Analysts sit and stare at the death TV for hours on end, trying to find a single target or see something move. General James Cartwright, he's the vice chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff at a conference in New Orleans in November. It's just a waste of manpower. Just sitting there watching death TV. They need something more interactive. The hunger for these high-tech tools was evident at the conference where officials were told of several thousand industry and intelligence officials they had to move at the speed of war in order to get the job done. Yeah. And again, going back to kind of, because every show takes on this theme, whether we want it to or not, that without the excuse of war, they wouldn't have these things. They wouldn't be able to afford them, they wouldn't be able to develop them, they wouldn't be able to test them, and they wouldn't be able to implement them, and then, of course, bring them back home to you at your local anti-war protest. Or Federal Reserve protest. Or when the people are finally, again, bullied around by the Soros matrix mole cabal and begin to resist in large numbers. Luckily, they'll have the Gorgon stare. I mean, they didn't mean to, or they never intended to use it here in the United States of America, but they have to now. The development, they say, began about 18 months ago. Based on the work of Air Force scientists who came up with the idea of stitching together views from multiple cameras, shooting 2 frames per second at a half-meter resolution. Sounds like some of the technology, very expensive technology, that was tested out in the National Football League about 2 years ago. Currently, a full-motion video is shot at 30 frames per second from one camera mounted on a Predator drone or a larger Reaper drone. Yeah, they're watching Death TV, and they're watching the Predator and Reaper drones do their work. But that's war. Make some more fluid video. It's smaller, it's cheaper, it's easier to deploy. Now, the Air Force has taken tips from the purveyors of pop culture. Yeah. It's working with Harris Corp to adapt ESPN's technique of tagging key moments in the National Football League videotaped in the war zone. I had not read this part of it yet, but of course, I see everything. I knew that was coming. Just as a sportscaster can call up a series of archived quarterback blitzes as soon as the player is sacked on the field, an analyst in Afghanistan can retrieve last month's worth of bombings in a particular stretch of road with the push of a button. Total recall. And does anyone out there believe they can't do this now? All right, this is what we're doing. The Air Force placed a contractor on the set of a reality TV show to learn how to pick out interesting scenes shot from the camera simultaneously, recording the action in a house. And, of course, let's just remember what reality TV is all about. They even have a show called Big Brother. Dying, begging to have your every movement recorded and to be manipulated and used and run through a mousetrap in order to get rewards. The whole thing is a giant test product on how to condition Americans and the people around the world. And look at them, they're going forward at record numbers. I don't think that even the most optimistic of the scientific, technology, military, industrial security, industrial complex engineers could have foreseen just how much the American people and the people around the world would take to this, would go along with all of this and love it. They're learning from reality TV. They're learning from national football. How appropriate. Taking a page from high-tech companies such as Google, we'll get to them in a second. The Air Force will store its reams, a ream, appropriate word there, video on servers placed in used shipping containers in Iowa. Remember that next time you're in Iowa. Air Force is looking to mount wide-area surveillance cameras on airships that can stay aloft for up to 2 weeks. And so, again, I ask you, will this crack the code? Will we be able to find just who might be smuggling all that opium out of Afghanistan and getting it on the streets of Russia and the United States of America? Any way you want to bet that that's not going to happen? Well, we don't have time. We're very busy trying to fight the war on terror. We don't have time to stop all of these illegal drug shipments. We don't. No. I have a great piece. I don't know if I'll be able to do it today. Maybe I'll publish it. If you support criminalization of drugs and drug users, everything that you endorse, it's kind of a reverse of, this is your drug on terror. You remember that one, the commercials? I didn't know, Dan. By buying a marijuana cigarette, I am supporting terror. Thanks for telling me that, Dan. I'll have to quit now. I'll have to quit. Well, in a way, it's true. Just who are the terrorists? That should be the question. This is all cutting-edge technology. It's been fielded in a short period of time thanks to the war, said retired Lieutenant General David DePutte. I mean, you've got to sell people on the war first, and then everything else works perfectly. And if you can keep war going forever, oh, man, what a boondoggle it is. Think of all your money, all the money, the gross domestic product, all the money that funnels into creating these police state, these big brother technologies. How about if that went to, I don't know, making life better for people everywhere? Does that make me a communist? Because I'm tired of seeing people suffering because, one of my missions is to stop human suffering, to stop suffering in this world, and to try to do that first within myself. There's a lot more on this. They're not... The Council on Foreign Relations loves it. They call it whiz-bang gear. And who could actually, when this is implemented in a war zone, who can actually come out and say, hey, slow down a second. Could you wait a minute on that? That could be used against me and my family, and I'd like to understand, as Brian was saying from Oklahoma City earlier, I want to know what this is all about. I want to understand how this can be implemented into my life. I want to know what this is going to cost me. No. We know how it goes. Let's see. We got about 2 minutes here. A couple of things that'll be fun and interesting to get to. One, we have a whistleblower who says that he went to a festival, an open mind kind of higher consciousness festival, and was exposed to attempted ET manipulation, a potential false flag at this festival, which he says was covertly run by people from the military-industrial complex. That could be interesting. I do want to talk a little bit about AIPAC here when we get to the other side of this break. This is still going on. Years and years and years, this espionage trial, extortion and bribery, and of course this is how our politicians are melded and forced to do things that even they know are bad for themselves in many ways, because there's dirt on them, because you can't get anywhere unless there's dirt on you, and AIPAC has all that dirt. And what they did to manipulate our trusted public officials, it is now pretty much a matter of record. Who was like AIPAC Jane and the Bush administration and the former Attorney General and the current Attorney General and Cousin Barry Obama, who's covering all of this up? They don't want you to get to the bottom of this because you'll have to call people like Condoleezza Rice and others, high-level people in our security apparatus here with this country, and they'll have to talk about how they look the other way and let all of this happen right under their very noses. They don't want you to see their secret files. Well, that sounds familiar. The Federal Reserve says the exact same thing. I'll try to get to that. And then former Google employees are rebelling. They're saying, disconnect your computer now. That data is it's going to be used against you at some point. Stay with us. Deadline Live. Jack Blood. We'll be right back. Still get into the show today. We got to get this going, man, here in 2011. 866-841-1065, 512-904-8014. I see you out there. No, I'm not doing that good a job. Thanks for joining us. Deadline Live, Jack Blood, Oracle Broadcasting and Affiliates. William Engdahl will join us from Germany tomorrow. Well, he's set to. Hopefully he'll be on. He's the one that wrote this WikiLeaks story that I thought was pretty great, all in all. And nothing's perfect. Exposing WikiLeaks. And so we'll talk about that on tomorrow's show. And he's also got a lot of great work on world domination of the economy, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera, on and on. And can talk a lot about the geopolitical situation going on in the world. One of the things this letter from Saddam Hussein, which we have posted at deadlinelive.info now, reveals a couple of things. Well, first of all, we really kind of lost face in this war. It's taken us 10 years in Afghanistan and, 8 years in Iraq, and we're no closer to winning if that was the goal, and it isn't. And I think that Saddam, if this really is him that wrote this letter, and I don't know how we got it, but well, that's a point. So we kind of exhausted our credibility around the world, and was it worth it? See, I think we should ask that. And ask that to people who are hawkish, and people who love war. And was it worth it? The money, the death, just everything, all the things, as we've been talking in the show constantly today about, what war brings you. Was it all worth it? And it's not even over by any shape or stretch of the imagination. So we blew our credibility. The fact that, Saddam Hussein and Iraq were allegedly our allies when they were fighting Iran. It was supposed to be not our ally, but we were shipping them weapons the whole time. As we know now, that's Iran-Contra again. In fact, as things were beginning to shift and change here just about a year or two ago, there were some deals made with Iran as a backup plan that we would use their airspace to prosecute these wars. That is, if we couldn't get Russia to do it, and they did. Which digs us down into these treaties and some of the things that have been going on in the communiques between our government and Russia. So they're still our allies. And that, Iran wouldn't be able to do a lot of the things that they allegedly do if Saddam Hussein was still there. I don't know, I think there was a lot of stuff that didn't get in that letter that he probably wrote, but you can check that out. And one thing Saddam Hussein said, and that discredits everything, is, he mentioned the word Zionist. There is such a thing, folks. It's true, there is such a thing. It is a cult, a cabal, a conspiracy. It's all of that. And like a company, its only motive, its only mission is to support its bottom line. The bottom line for Zionism is to create total control by Zionists, who don't even have to be Jewish, by the way, in order to continue to float their bottom line, to increase their bottom line. And it's not just about money. The bottom line is power, control, and, maybe elimination and complete slavery of everybody who's not in their cabal. How that operates here in the United States of America, the American Israel Public Affairs Committee. We have been documenting them for years. Just a couple of days ago, they filed a 53-page motion. I have the PDF here on our website, asking Judge Eric Christian, that's appropriate, to sanction former employee Stephen J. Rosen over the illicit possession and release of sensitive internal AIPAC documents. Steve Rosen's $20 million defamation suit against one of his former employers seeks compensation for derogatory public statements AIPAC made to justify firing him, and this guy's no good guy. That is after he was indicted under the Espionage Act of 2005, never prosecuted, though, and their joint defense agreement had collapsed. So here you have some of the rats turning on each other on the sinking ship, which actually isn't sinking. AIPAC is determined to treat the Rosen defamation lawsuit as that of a disgruntled former employee while dodging more relevant questions about its own handling of government classified information. And what do they say when we begin to hear this? They own everybody. They own Clinton. They started naming off the people that they own, and they were bragging that basically whoever they don't own, if they want to be in power, they will own them. That being the American Israeli Public Affairs Committee, like JINSA, highly involved in manipulation of evidence and intelligence in 9/11. Just one of the many things they've been involved in. Rosen has continually introduced highly sensitive AIPAC documents into court filings while threatening to put more about AIPAC's most sensitive operations into the public domain. And this happens every day. Disgruntled people who have been cut out of off the poker table. They seek to fortify their position, and because all they know is extortion and blackmail, they begin using it against their own people. On April 30th, 2010, both parties of this suit entered into a comprehensive protective order so that you can't see what they were talking about and classify these documents and depositions as confidential, attorneys' eyes only. But as early as May 14, 2010, AIPAC's legal team began asking Rosen to return a cache of confidential, privileged, and proprietary documents that belonged to AIPAC that he was keeping, of course, to cover his ass. Their protests and threats, we have that PDF. Additional legal actions never ceased. Now, in the middle of all of this, there's supposed to be a trial going on to get to the bottom of all of this. It's not happening. Judge after judge after judge has denied certain witnesses able to testify, denied evidence to be entered into admission of the court as a so-called evidence, and just nothing going to move this case forward, so it hangs in limbo. In the middle of all of this, these guys allegedly fighting against one another. An interesting name comes up here. The National Security Council, Lisa Johnson, internal memo about how limits on individual contributors, that is, contributors to AIPAC, could affect U.S. political campaigns. AIPAC to the, politicians. Wouldn't you like to see that? Another we know some of it. Internal memo about the individual political activities of AIPAC members and Keith Weissman's employee performance review. All things they want to try to, keep on the down low. Now, Lisa Johnson worked in the Bush 43 National Security Council, Near East and South Asian Affairs Division, under Bruce Riddell and Zalmay Khalilzad. You might remember that name. He was one of the original signers of the Project for a New American Century. He is the person who is supposed to depose and then replace the mayor of Kabul at this time in Afghanistan, their leadership, which is up to their noses in drug smuggling and drug cultivation. Zalmay Khalilzad, you might look into him, but not as easy as it sounds, because people all over the world are becoming a little more suspicious, thankfully. Former AIPAC employee Keith Weissman indicated on espionage along Rosen in 2005. AIPAC claims most offensive Mr. Rosen is stolen private employment evaluation. They just want to keep, this is just an excuse now to keep all of this quiet. AIPAC makes a strong case, they say, for dismissal of the entire defamation suit as well as everything else. Involved in this, the District of Semiramis Trade Secrets Act, the Joint Defense Agreement, and the terms of which Rosen was employed in AIPAC, meaning don't you ever tell anybody anything. And if this was really a problem, this Steve Rosen guy would be dead. I believe this is all a smokescreen to keep this stuff confidential so that we can't understand exactly what a foreign country's bribery, intelligence, and extortion have done to our country. Something I guarantee you Israel would not like very much if we were doing it over there, and we try to do it, but we're not quite as successful as I guess we haven't had as much experience here. While Rosen appears to have violated some narrow provisions of the protective order, he still has room to maneuver out of an immediate dismissal. In both his original defamation suit filing subsequent introduction of evidence, Rosen tried to threaten evil by claiming that he was somehow not unlawful for AIPAC. It wasn't unlawful for AIPAC to routinely collect and circulate classified U.S. documents, and that he was unjustly punished for such activities. Rosen could now claim the obvious, that AIPAC is long entangled in legal activities such as functioning as an agent of a foreign government, which drove it into the classified information handling business. We've got the story. It's a tangled web, all at DeadlineLive.info. We'll come back, try to finish this show up right after this. Well, that's the good news. It's just fully admitted now. Scientists created 50 rainstorms in Abu Dhabi's Al Ain region last year. And if you can afford it, they can do it. Or they'll do it to you anyway. And this is being hailed as man being God. It's a great little picture here of Queen Lizard and Zayed Al Nahyan. He is the president of the United Arab Emirates. They're on the good side. They're not the evildoers. They are our friends. This is important for mankind. Getting water into dry areas, helping people around the world. How many people out there listening or that you know that have half a brain believe that this will be used for good? No, but it's admitted over and over and over and over and over again. The Holy Grail, controlling the weather, not by 2025, by 2011. And we'll try to get that story up for you. DeadlineLive.info. This also in Goldman Sachs invests they own everything else. $450 million into Facebook at $50 billion valuation. Huge news for Facebook. Goldman Sachs is investing $500 million in the company at a $50 billion valuation. Hopefully that goes well for them. Well, it will, because they bought it. And if you knew ahead of time that they were buying into it, you'd be all set. Good for you. Hopefully you put a little time. You put a little time and money into knowing that the stocks was going to go up. This as Facebook starts to threaten Google as the most important site on the internet. Of course, Google owns YouTube and everything else. The other story we have on Google is that several of their disgruntled employees have had it, and they're trying to get out and tell you and give you some kind of software in order to protect yourself from the massive cookie data mining, which is just a daily part of life for me. Though we don't know at this point if these people, and be very careful about this, if these people could themselves be agents and helping you to download something to track you even more. Be very, very careful. Goldman's investment comes alongside a new $500 million investment from existing Facebook investor. The Russian investment firm, DST, also invested in Groupon and Zynga. Goldman has the right to sell up to $75 million of its stake to whoever they want. As part of the deal, Goldman will help raise another $1.5 billion for Facebook at that $50 billion valuation. Of course, this puts Goldman in the lead to run Facebook's eventual IPO. It's doing it on the cheap, right, folks? How do you like that? Police state, TSA photocopies 4,409 members' credit cards and other personal documents. Maybe you should listen to this. DeadlineLive.info. Check it out.
Is it normal for TSA to go through documents and verify names on credit cards? Yes. Okay. Where does it say that in TSA policy? Pitbull, and that is Litchfield, and that is William Sanford, the supervisor of the TSA Domestic Surveillance Squad. Domestic Surveillance Squad. Going through credit cards. Is there a reason my documents are being gone through? Partly. The first one is for you. And this is the whole scam right here. People violating people's rights. There's the supervisor, De La Rosa. And worst of them all. Here's another one.
I need you to get on that side, please.
I'm sorry?
I need you to get over here on this side.
Okay.
You're not allowed to be. No. Put the camera down, please.
I'm sorry, what?
Put the camera down, please.
Okay, don't block my camera on this.
You're busted.
I'm asking you not to film me. I have not given you permission to film me.
I don't need. You're in a public place.
I need for you to
I'm fine. I'm coming. Don't put your hand on my face.
4409, going out and getting the truth, copying their credit cards at TSA. It's still part of the job. And TSA's and Homeland Security's boundaries expanding by the second to be a worldwide. I thought it was Homeland Security. I guess the Homeland is the new world order. It's expanding all around the world. In fact, Janet Napolitano, right now, the information that we have in Israel, learning from Israel how to implement their security right here into our own airports and our own checkpoints. They're the master of the checkpoints. Go learn from the best. Not that they haven't done that already. That video busted photocopying credit cards and whatnot, everything else, because it isn't just for your security, it's for your control. What is going on? Breaking news, 3.6 magnitude earthquake rattles northern England. It's a little roller coaster ride. I shouldn't be so flippant, but that's how I do. That's how I roll. Like I said, tomorrow, William Engdahl will be joining us. A pretty smart guy, has a lot of great information. How good he is on the radio, I'm not sure. Sometimes we get guys that are very good writers and not so good on the air, but we're going to hope for the best. He'll be joining us tomorrow. Jordan Maxwell will be with us on Thursday, and we're confirming other guests here for the week as we go. You know, we here on the radio, we're radio hosts. Let's not pretend we're anything more than that. And getting the best guest on the show and letting them talk to you is really what we're all about. And then trying to mediate that a little bit and making sure it doesn't all go downhill. So that's this week, and we are booking guests as we speak. Hopefully you'll enjoy them. This just in also will almost get you out of here on this. Californians, you might want to check into how this is going for you, wherever you might live, whatever state you might be in. Californians getting 725 new laws in 2011. Right now, as we speak, der Gruppenführer, he's commuting sentences and organizing pardons. I'd be interested to get a good look at that list. But 725 new laws on January 1st. Now they're there. The one that I think made the most noise is that makes it a misdemeanor to maliciously impersonate someone via a social media outlet or through emails. You hear that? We have a lot of people that do that to us. I'm still not for the law. SB 1411, a misdemeanor. I mean, if you're maliciously doing anything, should it be a misdemeanor? I mean, that can be debated. 725 new laws, most of which the average Californian isn't even going to be aware of. It's not like they, have big billboards and they send out a handbook, which maybe they should do. Maybe that would wake people up. Look, just in case you didn't know, here's 725 new laws you're going to have to obey. What? Well, hold on a minute. I didn't vote for any of this. Oh, yes, you did. By proxy. You voted for your representative, and this is what they decided to do to you. And there's so many of them. It'd be hard to go into them, but one prevents landlords from evicting a tenant who are victims to domestic and sexual abuse or stalking. Yeah. Right, can't pay my rent. Here, punch me in the eye, and then we'll use this as... that could be abused. There's almost a pro-marijuana law, but makes possession of up to an ounce of marijuana an infraction with a penalty of only a $100 fine. That's still too much, and of course it goes in your permanent record. AB 12 allows foster youth to be held till 21 in foster care by the government. And, of course, lots of food bans. And you can find all of that. We'll put it up at DeadlineLive.info. All right, man. Long day, long show. I got to get out of here. Stay tuned for Doug. He's coming up right now on Oracle. Stay bold, America.